This deck kind of runs two things. It's primarily an aggro deck. It's a lightning ice. On your first turn, you want to start putting pressure on. But it's primarily a control deck, where a lot of this deck, with how lightning just plays, is about making sure your opponent doesn't have things on the board, making sure you're countering anything they're trying to do, making sure that they can't do things to counter that initial push that you made. From what I found, the deck is definitely you need to get a presence very early on, and then just kind of play on that for the rest of the game. If you don't get that first push, the deck really starts to drag behind, and it can lead you to lose rather easily. This deck here is the Manikin deck. This is pretty much the same deck that was played that won the last Opus 2 tournament. I've made some alterations based on what the original creator of the deck, recommended, and kind of just went with it as I could. Primary card of the deck is going to be your ExDeath, obviously the 6-cost Opus 2 one. You play that, and that's kind of your main opener, no matter what, is having ExDeath, and either playing the Capricious Reaper or playing the Fleeting Flash. Fleeting Flash is ideal, because Fleeting Flash does have haste. And then running the Vayne, of course, to make sure your opponent can't block with the high-cost actives, or the high-cost forwards. And especially against other lightning decks, it can lock down pretty hard. Yeah, I mean, the main mechanic in it's going to be the ExDeath. Playing ExDeath, playing Fleeting Flash, Capricious Reaper off of that ExDeath play, thus boosting ExDeath and the Manikin itself. And then ideally having a second Manikin in hand you can play turn 2 to just pump up ExDeath even more. I think the highest I've ever gotten ExDeath was to a 12,000 power, which just became ridiculous for my opponent to try to play around. But obviously it's kind of a little tricky to come by. So I do run Amon, I run Lightning, I run the Opus 1 Legend Lightning and the Opus 1 Rare Lightning. The Rare Lightning obviously just for the fact of it having haste, and then the Legend one because Army of One is a ridiculous ability. From what I found, Vayne really does lock down things rather well. He's a good kind of hold card. Plays against lightning rather well. It'll play against some fire decks rather well. And then I do run the Opus 1 Ice Devout. So if any case they did do some ridiculous thing to get rid of Vayne, you play Devout and you get Vayne back onto the field. And obviously you have to sack Devout to do that, but usually if you can keep Vayne on the board, it locks down those high cost cards rather well. Usually can hold you out until you can get another ExDeath or another Manikin out. And obviously you run the basis of pretty much any lightning deck that they'll run. You run Alcid with Rigdia and Onion Knight. You run Gramis to search for your Alcids and your Rigdias. Just that adds to that whole control aspect of the deck. Just making sure once you do have your Manikin and your ExDeath on the field, you keep them there. You don't want those to go away, because as soon as you lose that, you're falling behind immediately. Yeah. Ideal first play, ExDeath, and either Capricious or Fleeting Flash. You want that to be your first turn every game if possible. You want to go turn 1 if you have these in your hand. Well, you're going to want to turn 1 no matter what on this deck. But you almost need to have ExDeath and Capricious or Fleeting in your hand. Because a first turn first turn 2 9,000s is going to slow down any deck no matter what. That turns into, okay, we need to deal with this almost immediately. And then second turn, if you're able to drop a fleeting or you're able to drop a second capricious, having that extra card boosts ExDeath more, which makes them more of a wall. Usually you don't swing with ExDeath. ExDeath is pretty much just your wall. You want to make sure you have him on the field always. And having Vayne as a secondary kind of helps lock down the cards that would be able to block your fleeting or your capricious, and keep them from continuously just smacking at your opponent. Amon's nice to help for those weird 4 costs that have way too much power to themselves. Just being able to lock those down kind of helps the deck kind of run through. Yeah. I'd say Devout, from what I found, has been a huge help to this deck. Mainly just because you're able to search for Vayne if you need them. Otherwise, if you have ExDeath out and you can bring a Capricious from the grave back, that's a nice combo to have. I mean, other than that, I'd like to run a third Amon. I'm only running 2 right now, but I'm running the 2-cost Ninja in this deck just because he seems to be a good... He has a good presence to have. He's a little scary for your opponent if you have him on the field. They have to start playing the game. Oh, do they have a lightning in their hand? Do they not have a lightning in their hand? Having backups obviously will help always have lightning available. And it keeps your opponent from trying to swing with those high attack minions that would be able to run over your Manikins, or would be able to run over your lightning, or even your ExDeath possibly. Feral Chaos is a thing. And he can swing over whatever he wants to. So having Ninja there kind of scares away that attack. It makes this the target rather than your Manikins, your Vayne, or your ExDeath. This is Zach. Thanks for watching Citadel Games.
Sweet.